This here is Metalfoes Yang Zing, or affectionately known as Yang Zinc. So let's just get right into it. So first off, for the Yang Zing lineup, we have 1, 2, 3 Jiao2 Darkness of the Yang Zing. For those who don't know what it does is, during your turn, you can discard 2 Yang Zings from your hand, and you can summon 2 Yang Zings from your deck. One has to have 0 attack, and the other has to have 0 defense. Now this guy is your main playmaker in the deck, and you do need to see him as soon as possible. Fortunately, the problem that the old Yang Zing decks had, which was not seeing this guy, has been remedied quite a bit thanks to the new Metalfoes engine. So 3 of him is a must though, and he is the main playmaker of the deck. Moving on, we have 3 Chaiwen Light of the Yang Zing. Now, Chaiwen is here not only as a level 1 tuner, which is really nice to work with, but he also recurs from the graveyard. So if you don't know what he does is, if a card on your side of the field is destroyed, and he's in the graveyard, you can special summon him from the graveyard, but he is banished when he leaves the field. However, you cannot use this effect the same turn he gets blown up and floats into another Yang Zing, so you gotta be careful. But he is very good for recovery, and I very much love him for that. Moving on, we got 1, 2, 3 Zifranu, Secret of the Yang Zing. Now with Zifranu, he is the way you turbo Baxia really easily in this deck. He's level 6, so he works very well with Jiao2, and he's a pendulum, so he's very easy to recur. Normally, you just want to turbo him out and not really use him as a scale. He is scale 7, however, when you do put him into the pendulum scale, you got to be careful because he does then limit you to Zephyra and Yang Zing cards to be pendulum summoned. So normally you won't be using him as a scale, but in an emergency it's acceptable. He also, when he is destroyed or pendulum summoned, once per turn of course, you get to search out a Yang Zing spell or trap card or a Zephyra spell or trap card. And that's going to be important a little later on, but for now, let's move on. Next we got 3 Beyond. Now, Beyond, if you don't know the Yang Zing's main gimmick, they give buffs. And Beyond here makes any synchro monster that used him as synchro material immune to battle destruction. This is very important when you combine him with a certain low level synchro that can negate stuff, and is just very hard to get over when you make him with this. Next, 3 Suwani, Fire the Yang Zing. Suwani's a level 4, so he's nice and easy to work with, and he gives any synchro made with him plus 500 attack. In addition, he is the 1900 beater of the deck, so you can get over problem cards, you get over things like Denko or whatever else could be giving you a hard time. And he's just very flexible, and you could either pop him for a Metalfoes scale, you could pop him for whatever else you may need, or you could use him as proper synchro material. Next up, we got 3 Bixi Water the Yang Zing. Bixi is your main wall at 2000 defense. He's also a level 2, and he makes any Yang Zing made with him immune to the effects of trap cards. This is pretty good, but I feel this format, it's not as good as it used to be, just because we don't have things like Fiendish running around nearly as much as we did, say, back in Duelist Alliance era. But overall, being a level 2 is nice and easy to work with. He's another name, so you could pop him with the Metalfoes scale. And overall, I just enjoy being able to just ram through mirror forces and back row without any need for worry. 1 Pulau Wind of the Yang Zing. Now Pulau has 0 attack, 1800 defense. Level 1, which is kind of nice and flexible, but at the same time you don't really want to see him that often because you want to make kind of the bigger synchros. And he makes any Yang Zing made with him have spell immunity. So it will be unaffected by spell cards. Now then, moving on to the bulk of the Metalfoes lineup, we got, for the 8 scales, 1 Volflame and 3 Steel Ring. Now then, I'm running 4 8 scales because, and you'll see how many 1 scales I run in just a moment, but I'm running this many 8 scales because in a pinch, I could use the Franyu as a high scale, as 7. But overall, I don't feel like I ever really need any more high scales, and they're very searchable and rather easy to get out. So I feel these 4 good enough for the 8 scales. Now then, moving on from that, for those who don't know the pendulum effect, I should probably get into that. It says that once per turn, you could target one card, face-up card you control, you can destroy it and set a Metalfoes spell or trap card from your deck to your side of the field. Now then, this does not make Yang Zing miss timing. Therefore, you can pop off a Yang Zing, get a Metalfoes spell or trap card, and then proceed to make more plays. Now then, as far as these as monsters these go, Volflame is level 7, so in a pinch he could be used for some high level synchros, and Steelrun is a level 2. Steelrun was mainly here at this many because before I used to play Nirvana High Paladin, but that has since been cut, and going from Baxia and using this to make Nirvana High Paladin was nice and easy. But overall, I do feel that at level 2 with 2100 defense, it's much better than Volflame, who is level 7 with 2400 attack. I just feel that I'm going to have more potential to brick with a level 7 than I am with a level 2. So that's why I keep the scales as these high scales as such. Moving on to my 1 scales, I got 3 Gold Driver and 3 Silverbird. Now then, same effect as the 8 scales, of course. And you're probably wondering why am I running so many 1 scales. It's because these are the scales I want to see in my opening hand. I'd much rather have a low scale than I would a high scale. Additionally, Gold River can be used to make a Metalfoes Horus in order to steal opponents' cards. Because it's level 4, Jiaotu's level 2, it's nice and easy that way. Silverbird never really gets used for synchro summoning, as it is a level 3, it's a bit awkward. But it's usually just here to be literally put in the scale, because I'd rather have Gold Driver in my hand than I would Silverbird, just because Gold Driver is a lot easier to work with. Moving on from that, now we should probably talk about our Metalfoes trap lineup. So I got 3 Metalfoes combination and 1 fusion. I'm only running 4 Metalfoes spell or traps because I feel that I draw into combination just enough and I don't see fusion ever, which is pretty much perfect. Because if you draw this guy, he's not completely dead because there are ways to pop him. This is a pretty easy deck to pop stuff with. And then fusion, you never want to really open with or ever see in the draw phase, because normally you just want to say bring it out off of a scale, blow it up with Abaxia, and then use its effect to just draw 1. Now then, for those who don't know what this does is, when a monster is fusion summoned, you can activate this card and you can revive a Metalfoes card from your graveyard with a level less than that fusion summoned monster. Not really a terribly useful effect in the Yang Zing build, but the more interesting effect is when this card is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you can search out any Metalfoes monster. So that is how you get any scale you need at whatever time. It works in conjunction with another card I'm going to get into, but also with Baxia, and even in a pinch, you could set this guy for 1 turn, flip him face up, and blow him up with another scale, and then you can complete your scale. So. Now then, for Yang Zing cards, I'm running 3 Yang Zing Path, and I'm just going to lop this in, Zephyr Divine Strike. Now then, Yang Zing Path is your recycler, and it's your sort of jar of avarice. You do not generally want to open this, but seeing it maybe turn 2, or even just opening it if your opening hand is decent enough isn't too bad. Zephyr Divine Strike, on the other hand, you really don't want to open with because it is so easily searchable in this deck. You want to mainly search this off the level 6 Franyu, and you just want to set it up in order to set up your pseudo locks. which are pretty much having like 3 to 5 negates on board and just watching your opponent cry a bit. And in an emergency, Yang Zing path can be used as a Yang Zing name for Jiao2. Moving on, we got one Psalm Warning. Psalm Warning is just good. And finally, 2 copies of Storm. Yeah, I have yet to find another Storm, so I'm just proxying with MST. And anyways, for those who don't know what Storm does, I will bring it up to the closer to the camera. It says, I destroy as many spell or trap cards as I control, and then destroy an equal amount on the opponent's side of the field, just as were destroyed by this card's first part of its effect. So, what do you want to do with this? You want to blow up your Metalfoes spell and trap cards in order to get massive searching done. In addition, you can blow up Fusion in order to just get a free draw. And I mean, there's something very satisfying about setting 2 Metalfoes combination and then using Storm against a Magic Spectre player who has set 3, and then just going off from there because you have nothing to worry about. It's just very fun. And overall, I wouldn't cut this because I feel it unbricks me way more than it does brick me. But at the same time, it is sometimes very much not ideal to have, and sometimes I just wish I had the straight Twin Twister, I had the straight MST, or whatever else. Anyways, moving on to the extra deck. It is right over here. So, we're going to start from the top with the Synchros and move down. So, first up, Chao Feng, Phantom of the Yang Zing. This allows you to lock out your opponent's monster effects of any attributes of the Yang Zing cards used to make him. So, for example, you make him using a Baxia and a Chaiwen, your opponent cannot activate light monsters' effects. In addition, every time it destroys a monster on your opponent's side of the, or every time a monster on your opponent's side of the field is destroyed, you can special summon 1 Yang Zing card of the same attribute from your deck into your field in defense position. In addition, if it is destroyed, you can add a tuner from your deck to your hand. It doesn't specify if it has to be a light or dark tuner, it's any tuner from your deck to your hand. So if you choose to play Veiler or you side Veiler, it's a pretty decent way to search it. Next we have Void Ogre Dragon. Void Ogre Dragon is part of that pseudo lock I was talking about. I mean, you could empty your hand pretty easily, and even if you don't, you could just set stuff. And Void Ogre Dragon, if you don't know what it does, once per turn, if your hand is empty, you can negate a spell or trap card that your opponent activates. So it's pretty good for that, and it's a 3k wall and beater. 1 Ignister! In order to get rid of things like Chaos Max and Dark Destroyer. 1 Stardust Dragon, because I honestly couldn't think of any good level 8s to put in here for now, and I am not going out of my way to buy a Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon. Moving on to one of the core cards of the deck, 3 Baxia. Baxia is necessary at 3. I could not envision playing this deck at any less than 3, because you do need to loop this guy a lot in order to build up pretty good field advantage. And you use him in order to go into usually things like Chao Feng and to our Xyz that I'll get into later. 1 Yazi. Yazi, you usually, rather than sit on a big untargetable Yazi like you would in pure Yang Zings, you usually just use him in order to pop him and pop something else on your opponent's side of the field, float, and then just go into other things. However, against certain decks like, say Burning Abyss, having an untargetable trap-proof Yazi can be very, very advantageous. 1 Odd Eyes Meteor Burst Dragon. Normally you don't take any cards out of your scale and special summon them, but the ability to stop effects of things like the Cosmos ships is very, very important. And if you do make him with a Suwani, he goes up to 3,000, so he becomes a very intimidating force to be reckoned with. 1 Clearwing Synchro Dragon, in beautiful Ghost Rare. Now then, this guy is here just for a little more defense. If, say, you know your opponent's playing a monster-heavy deck, you can just go into this guy and not have to worry about it, as opposed to, say, Void Ogre, which relies on spells and traps. This guy relies more on monster effects, at least targeting ones. However, he won't do jack against rank 4, which sucks. Metalfoes Horus. Metalfoes Horus is the only level 6 I currently play. For those who don't know its effect, I will read them to you. So it is a worm. Okay, camera, focus, please. Okay. So basically, its effect kind of depends on what synchro material you use to summon it. And these effects do, as a matter of fact, stack. So if you use a normal monster, this face-up card is unaffected by other card effects this turn. If you use an effect monster, you can target one other face-up card on the field, negate its effects, and that's permanently. And Pendulum monster, your opponent chooses one monster they control and gives control of it to you, but it cannot attack this turn. So you can see how that could be very useful. Untargeting, basically change of hearting your opponent's cards is always very nice to do. And I have done things like stolen Dark Destroyers and used them to XZ summon and other shenanigans like that. In addition, say your opponent isn't smart enough to negate the summon with, say, a Psalm Strike or whatever else. So you summon him, you make the Pendulum effect, Chainlink 1, and then you make the effect after that, the normal monster effect, Chainlink 2. Your opponent, if they were to then realize, oh no, this is what this card does, they try to Psalm Strike it, well, they're just going to Psalm Strike the unaffected by card effects effect, and not the stealing effect. So you will still be able to steal things. So it's pretty nice for little jukes like that. One, High Speed Roy Chambara. This is the OTK machine. You use it to OTK. I love it. Because usually I will make it with a Chaiwan and Suwani. It goes up to 2,500. If it attacks the first time, it goes up to 2,700. Attacks another time after that, it goes to 2,900. And it's just going to be a good card to lay down the smackdown on your opponent. Additionally, if for whatever reason you can only make a Baxia and this against your opponent, and you're able to backseal your opponent's back row and whatnot, this plus an unbuffed Baxia is a near OTK. Your opponent will have literally 100 life points left. And our final synchro is Herald of the Arclight. Herald of the Arclight, for those who don't know what it does, is anytime a card is sent from the hand or deck to the graveyard, it is banished instead. And when your opponent would activate spell, trap, or a monster effect, you contribute this card to negate it, and it's got a ritual-related effect that we don't care about because we're not Necros or Cyber Angels. Now then, one fun play you could do when the new support comes out eventually in Invasion of Venom, which I believe is November, is you can pop a card with the new counter trap, get back a Chaiwan from the graveyard, summon a Beyond, and synchro on your opponent's turn. So you essentially replace your negation, which is pretty fun. But we don't have that quite yet, so you can find other creative ways and other neat, interesting ways to make this guy. And I mean, Beyond is run at 3 and Chaiwan is run at 3. It's rather easy to get out, but it is definitely not a priority. The priority is setting up things like our next card. Number 38, Hope Harbinger, now. Now this card is very useful for negating spell effects, because, I mean, it steals them and it turns them into Xyz material. Its other effect, where it actually detaches things, is completely irrelevant to us, but stealing spells is a very powerful effect, especially against decks like Monarchs or any Pendulum variants that are running around, and even the Mirror Match. Now then, our final card for the extra deck is the only Metalfoes fusion I'm running, Metalfoes Orichalc. Now then, this guy, for those who don't know what it does, it's 2,800 and it lets all your Metalfoes cards inflict double piercing damage to your opponent. It is also a level 8, and when it is removed from the field, you can target one card on the field and destroy it. So, oftentimes you will almost never go into this guy. But in order to make Fusion somewhat live, you will need him. Anyways, thank you very much for watching, and have a wonderful day.